fine. Fix not 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 fine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here. We're small business owners from the sandwich shop. My wife, Clarissa Penzini, and me. Thank you so much. We believe in family businesses, and we decided to open one 7 years ago. It's been a whole journey. We worked alongside with the city for the good, for the bad, for the better, and for the growing. We are honored to have had the mayor and the councilman, Antonio Reynoso, and over to our shop and listen to us and ask us what's going on, what our concerns are. So you have a brief idea, we make world-inspired sandwiches, but more than world-inspired, they're New York-inspired sandwiches because we have a little bit of the world in every corner of this beautiful city, and we take pride of that, and we love that. We work alongside with the community. We love that. We print our menus next door, literally. We make our T-shirts here on Grand Street. We get our bread in Greenpoint, and we know what every small business owner goes through in the city, and the fines, and and the things that can happen that you don't know about, and when you're really busy and an inspector comes in and you don't know what to do, and you learn about a new violation that just you're not up to date, and it's great. And it's great that the mayor has this incentive of giving us a break and making us making the whole situation more human, where you have the chance to learn and you have the chance to fix before being fined. And we all want to change that face of the city. We don't want to be afraid of a New York City jacket when they come in, or a badge. We don't want to feel that like our temperature drops when they come in. We want to feel that they're here to help us and to make us grow. So we are both very happy to be here, to have a voice, and let me introduce you to our newest customer, Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, and I'm a little upset that, I don't know, that's yours. I'm a little upset that I got to order the sandwich but didn't get to eat it. So I want to be able to praise your sandwich. I will give you a full report as soon as I've eaten it. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. And thank you, Ricardo and Clarissa, for the amazing business that you have created. It obviously means a lot to the community. Thank you for hosting Antonio and Andy and I, and for giving us your perspective. This is a beautiful example of what a small business can be for a community. Let's thank them for all they do. And both what you heard here and the conversation we had at the sandwich shop is all about the challenges that small businesses face. And let me just say, because I got a lot of good friends here and a lot of people who do so much for their communities, I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to start with a statement that I've heard from so many of you. What small businesses do for our communities, absolutely crucial, but it is not easy to own a small business in New York City. It's extraordinarily important. This is where so many of the jobs are. This is where so much of the identity of our communities comes from, is these small businesses. This is people living out their dreams. This is what everything that New York City is about. But it's also a hard place to have a small business. And our job is to protect small businesses and continue to make the changes we need to protect our small businesses. The fact is, when you think about our neighborhoods, one of the most precious parts of our neighborhoods is our small businesses, particularly the businesses that have been there a long time, the mom and pop stores that people really, really identify as being a lot of the heart and soul of the neighborhood. And I have heard all over this city the sense that we are losing a lot of our identity, a lot of who we are as New Yorkers. And that's creating real deep concern, real distress in neighborhoods all over the city. So we're going to talk today about one of a number of things that we need to do and will do to protect small business. And I'm glad that when you think of small business, this is the face of New York City small business right here. Every community, every kind of person, every kind of entrepreneur, and folks who do so much. And by the way, folks who, it's not just what they do through their small business, the folks they employ from the community, the service they provide to the community. It's also so many of these people, like the sandwich shop, do fantastic work supporting community institutions. They do a lot of charity. They do a lot of community involvement. So look around, everyone. Give your neighbor a round of applause. Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues from the administration. You're going to hear from the elected officials in a moment, but I want to thank members of the administration who have been actively involved in our efforts to support small business. Our Buildings Commissioner, Melanie LaRocca, thank you. Our Small Business Services Commissioner, Greg Bishop, thank you. Our Sanitation Commissioner, Catherine Garcia, thank you. And our Veteran Services Commissioner, James Hendon, thank you. Appreciate, all that you all are doing. Now, I am reaching underneath, and look, it's actually where it's supposed to be, this blueprint. 2 weeks ago in the State of the City, I talked about how we save our city. And that means protecting the people of New York City so they can live here, so they can afford New York City, so New Yorkers can actually afford to be in the city they love, in the neighborhood they love, and protecting our small businesses. When I talk about saving our city, that is the essence of it. Affordability and protecting small business, protecting our neighborhoods, protecting our identity, protecting who we are. I thought about those specific words before I gave the State of the City. And it came to me from probably 1,000 conversations I had with New Yorkers, town hall meetings and on street corners and subways and all over. That fear that who we are as New York City could be slipping away and that we have to do something about it. So this plan gives us a framework to work with to make the changes we need. And it could not be more appropriate to be talking about this in Williamsburg. Talk about a neighborhood that's gone through change. It's a neighborhood that's very rich with small businesses. It's a neighborhood that has a lot of people who've been here a long time and are a vibrant part of the community. Obviously a neighborhood with a lot of newcomers, a lot of new small businesses too. But there's been extraordinary pressures on small businesses because of rents going up. We need to make sure that we address these challenges with every tool we have. Because again, if we lose our small businesses, it's not New York City anymore. I want to be clear, if we lose New York City, if we lose the small businesses of New York City, we're just not going to have the same character, the same identity, the same heart and soul that we honor about New York City, that we love about New York City, that has made us great. So we have to take the steps to protect small businesses, and the evidence of why this is so urgent is all around us. There is a study that came out recently that says there are 12,000 vacant storefronts in New York City. That is an astounding figure, 12,000. Now, my friends, that's today, and these pressures on small business are mounting. Think about what it would look like if that number doubled or tripled, what that would mean to the commercial strips all over this city in our neighborhoods, what that would feel like and how much of a problem that would create if that kept going. So we're going to do things to address that right now. I want to say to all the folks here, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Now, your businesses, thank God, are continuing to contribute to the community. But raise your hand if you've lost a neighborhood small business that you cherished. Raise your hand if you have one in your community that has been lost. Raise your hand if there's some place in your neighborhood that you barely recognize because there's so many vacant storefronts. Anyone have that problem? I see it all over. We cannot let that continue. So in the State of the City, in my plan, I laid out a variety of steps. One of them, one of the most immediate ones, is to continue to slash fines for small business. This is something the City of New York can do right now to take away burdens from small business. Now look, I want to be clear, I want to be fair. The idea to begin with of a lot of laws related to small business was protect, of course, health and safety of all New Yorkers. A lot of laws are there for a good reason. I've never questioned the underlying motivation. What I have questioned for years, going back to when I was a council member or public advocate, is the way we apply our laws and whether all of our laws are in fact up to date and still appropriate. Because every single person here wants health and safety for their customers and their community. They don't need to be fined to be convinced to do the right thing, but they do need to, as you heard from Ricardo and Clarissa, they do need to be updated as to how the laws are changing. They do need to be educated. They do need support to understand how best to comply with the law. And what I've said for years and years is, we don't want to take money out of your pocket. We only want to fix the issues if there are issues. That's why we have been able already to cut small business fines. And I want to give you a clear example. In the previous administration, when I was public advocate and I would raise the concern about small business fines, I was told constantly there was no way they could be reduced. And I said very bluntly at the time that I thought what was really going on was it was simply an excuse to raise revenue. A lot of those fines were arbitrary and unnecessary, that the same result could have been achieved without the fine. Oh no, we were told all the time before I became mayor that no, there's no way to get rid of those fines. Guess what? Since I have taken office, we have cut those fines by 40%. You know what that means for the people behind me? We have put literally, in the last 6 years, $100 million back in the pockets of small businesses in New York City. $100 million. And I am convinced now we can go farther. So what I announced in the State of the City is we will take an additional step. We will cut fines further. What will this mean each year from this point on? It will mean that in an average year, we will put $26 million back in the hands of small businesses. And my goal is to go even farther, to eliminate any unnecessary fines altogether, unnecessary rules or regulations, and to make sure that all city officials, all inspectors, all frontline workers know that the mission is to correct the problem, not to take money out of the pockets of small business. I'm going to be the first to say, and I don't think this is a common situation, but if there are small business owners who consistently refuse to abide by rules that are there for the health and safety of New Yorkers, guess what? If we give people multiple chances, they don't fix a problem, then they're going to pay a fine, and they should. But that is not the typical situation. We, I think, can make a huge impact on small business by reducing fines, and it will be part of all the efforts that we need to undertake as part of the blueprint that I put out to address the needs of small business. So I would say this to everybody. We're New Yorkers. We don't give up. Yes, it is a tough environment to work in. Yes, costs keep going up. I'm not belittling that for a moment. But every single one of you were tough enough to create your business. What you deserve is a city that's on your side to help you keep your business, to help you grow your business, to help make sure that small businesses thrive in the future of New York City. And that is what we are committed to doing, to being on your side. Because just like that sign says there, hold it up, brother, too small to fail. Our small businesses are too important to our communities to let them slip away. We will fight for and defend our small businesses. I want to thank all of you. A few words in Spanish before I call upon my elected colleagues. Hoy eliminamos millones de dólares en multas a pequeñas empresas. Las pequeñas empresas son parte de nuestros barrios y no las podemos perder. La ciudad no hará un negocio de dañar a sus negocios. With that, I'm going to turn to, we have a number of colleagues here. I want to start with the man who represents this community and took me to the sandwich shop with great pride in that store and all it means to the community. He also is the chair of the Committee on Sanitation, so he knows plenty about how we address the issues around sanitation fines, and he's been a great advocate for small business. Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
I want to keep this short and sweet because reducing fines for businesses speaks for itself. For a long time in the City Council and in the City of New York, we've done a lot to add to the burden that businesses give or participate in the city. We've asked for paid sick leave. We've talked about paid time off. And those are all good intentioned pieces of legislation that we want to champion and that we wanted to champion and that we wanted to make sure we're front and center. But we also have to talk about the small businesses that are providing those jobs, that are going to give that paid time off, that are going to give paid sick leave, that are going to give $15 an hour. How are we helping them as well continue to be able to provide these services and resources to the people of our city? And fines is the most obvious way to start doing that work. And the mayor has come to Williamsburg today to be in Grand Street in the sandwich shop. If you're from Williamsburg, you know exactly who they are. And they've been doing amazing work. And they're an immigrant story of coming to New York and doing this work. They're well-intentioned people. The people behind us are all well-intentioned. More times than not, if a business is getting a fine, it is an unintentional mishap of some sort. We should allow them the opportunity to rectify. We should allow them to fix that problem. And we've all heard the horror stories here and there, and now we're going to address that. So I'm very happy to be standing here with the mayor, with my colleagues in the city council, and showing that not only can we help workers that are out here in the city of New York doing the great work, but also the businesses that are employing them as well. And in Spanish, very quickly, tenemos una oportunidad hoy de enseñarle a los empresarios y a los negocios de Nueva York que sí creemos en ellos y también queremos que ellos sigan creciendo. Y eso va a pasar si nosotros con intención le cortamos las multas y le damos la oportunidad de arreglar los problemas que tienen antes de darle una multa. Y eso es lo que vamos a hacer hoy. Y por mucho tiempo sabemos que hemos apoyado a los trabajadores de Nueva York y en este tiempo estamos tomando también la oportunidad de ayudar a los empresarios. Le quiero dar las gracias al alcalde Bill de Blasio por esta sugerencia, el trabajo que ha hecho en este momento de reconocer el valor de los negocios y mis colegas en el Consejo Municipal estamos muy felices de esta iniciativa para ayudar a nuestros pequeños negocios. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. And now he chairs the Committee on Consumer Protection, and this department is obviously another one of the important departments that connects with small business all the time. Another one of the places we want to keep working to reduce fines. My pleasure to welcome Councilmember Andy Cohen.
The real news is I'm in Brooklyn, all the way from the Bronx. But it was important to be here. I'm thrilled the Bronx is in the House, not only my colleague, Councilmember Jonai, but I see my bid director from the Jerome Gun Hill bid, Jennifer Tausig. And I know that you've gotten a lot of feedback from business owners and the bid directors, and I think that we're really onto something. I will be very pleased to go to a bid board meeting and be able to deliver some good news that the city really cares about the small businesses and that we have a plan to try to help them stay in business and support them. So I don't know if there's any legislative fixes, but as the chair of the Committee on Consumer Affairs, I'm really excited to be a partner, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do what we got to do.
Amen.
Excellent.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Next speaker is tremendously supportive of small business. His love for small business grows as long as his hair continues to grow, which is really getting quite extraordinary. And he represents a community that has gone through some of the biggest change in New York City, where the pressure to protect our small business is the greatest. Councilmember Steve Levin.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here at PS 18 in Williamsburg, and I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank my colleagues and the entire administration. You know, in the 10 years that I've been in the council, you know, anytime I talk to a small business owner about any issue, I could go to them about any issue. I could sit down with them about a range of topics. First thing they'll always say to me is, you got to do something about these fines. You've got to do something about these fines. And you know, I've always said, well, you know, I don't know what I could do. You know, we could do some legislative reductions, but you know, they are what they are. Well, you know, it's great that Mayor de Blasio has heard that call and has actually taken some real action to bring some relief to these small businesses, because all of you know, small businesses, everybody that starts a small business invests their entire life savings into creating something that may fail or may succeed. They're operating on the margins. The difference between failure and success is actually pretty small. And the city, we need to do more to help them. And so this is a great step forward in that. And I just want to also acknowledge the mayor's announcement at the State of the City regarding looking at commercial rent stabilization in some meaningful way to have some predictable and standard across the city so that small businesses are not put in the position of doing all these investments and then at the end of their lease having their rents go up 3 or 4 times and forcing them out and just paving the way for multinational corporations to fill the space. And so I want to thank the mayor for announcing that we're going to be taking a real look at this, and I look forward to partnering with the administration on that. And this is a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank Councilmember Levin. He has obviously been spearheading the discussion around commercial rent control, and we're going to get to the bottom of this and figure out what makes sense for the future of New York City and for our small businesses. So thank you. Well, next, a very passionate advocate for small business, and he has also come all the way from the Bronx, and he loves small business so much that he became the chair of the Committee on Small Business in the City Council. Councilmember Mark Jonai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our small businesses should be praised for the investment and the risk that they've taken. See, we all know that to have a living wage, a minimum wage, to be able to receive health care, paid family leave, that means the men and women, including Clarissa and Ricardo, have to stay in business to be able to offer those benefits and wages to our employees. I, too, am concerned, Mr. Mayor, along with my colleagues, of the future of the city of New York. Our commercial corridors are not the same corridors that we have been accustomed to growing up with. We see the changes. We see the writing on the wall. And it's a proud day for me to stand here with all of you as we take the right approach to ease the pain of small business, to embrace them as a partner, Mr. Mayor, to work with the Commissioner of SBS on making sure that our small businesses continue to survive and thrive. They're not piggy banks, and they shouldn't be viewed as an opportunity to fill city coffers' pockets. We need our small businesses. It's bad enough that they have to deal with consumer behavior changes, e-commerce, and big box store competition. Our micro businesses, our mom and pop shops are the David when it comes to the challenges that they face. This government can't control many factors, including weather, that sets back our small businesses, Mr. Mayor. But we can control fines and penalties and licensing fees and permits to make it easier. And you're right, Mr. Mayor. Small businesses want to comply. they just may not be aware of the changes in laws or the regulations. There's nearly 6,000 rules and regulations on the books. It's impossible for them to be able to make the donuts, deliver the donuts, and be the HR and be the secretary and comply with laws that are too complicated for even legislators to understand. So I'm grateful to you for taking this position, for making small business a partner in this great city of ours, and together we're going to weather out these storms. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Councilmember. I want to emphasize, and certainly with the leadership of Commissioner Bishop, again, this is going to be a constant effort to look for all the ways to simplify the work of small business and make it easier to comply with those rules and figure out some that we may not need anymore, too, which is an ongoing effort we should all be working on. So this is part of something much bigger, but you're right, partnership is the right way to look at it. Finally, representing one of the most extraordinarily vibrant small business communities anywhere in the city, and a place that really represents the American dream so powerfully. My pleasure to introduce Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and of course, my district go up to Marble Hill, which is between Manhattan and the Bronx. I had the honor to serve, at least for 1 month, together with our mayor, former public advocate, but as a council member together, because I won in 2009, so I didn't have to wait till January, so I took office in December. So yes, I remember those days when we were told a lot of things that we couldn't do it. And I know that Steve too, and those who also, Antonio working with Diana Reina, he knows. And I think that the history of New York City in the future has to be honest. If you are a billionaire running the city, you get rid of a lot of things. If you are a mayor that comes from a working class and a middle class, there's a lot of things that you have done. And for me, it has been an honor to be a partner from the council side, not only on the reducing of fine that we were told over and over in the past that couldn't be done, but the UPK, Computer for All, Crossing Rikers Island. Those conversations didn't start in your administration. We started in the previous one, and we were told over and over and over that we couldn't do it. So the reduction of fine today is very important for a small business. And for me to stand here, we are Nelson Eusebio, that also represent the Supermarket Association that own the largest number of supermarkets in the city of New York. Standing yesterday with the members of the Yemen community, with Marcos, your commissioner, Radames, and Martes from the Bodega Association on support of the hard workers from the Yemen and the Latino community who own Delhi. And the day after, being here with you, releasing this information, that there's gonna be, that we are addressing fine as a way to bring social justice. We have to save the small business. You can leave the legacy. The small businesses are the face of New York City. They create most of the job, and they rely on City Hall and the council to bring justice for them. It's not enough to give a lot of subsidy to the big corporation. This is how we sending the message to them. You care, we care for you. We will be standing shoulder to shoulder. Because when you close, we lost face or Latino or the Greek and the Italians and the Jewish community. So for me it is an honor to be here in this day. Es un honor estar aquí porque es un día de nosotros mandarle un mensaje a los pequeños negociantes de que sí se puede. En el pasado nos decían que no. And yes, there have been a big reduction of fines to the small business compared to the past. La reducción de la fianza que pagan los pequeños negocios hoy son completamente mucho más grandes que las que se hacían anteriormente en la administración pasada. Hoy le damos la gracia al alcalde, le damos la gracia a cada uno de ustedes y le estamos diciendo a los dueños de restaurante, a los dueños de lounge, a los dueños de bodegas, a los dueños de supermercados, nosotros estamos con ustedes. Gracias y sí se puede.
Okay, let us take questions from the media on small business issues, and then we'll go to other topics. Yes?
Can you explain a little bit more about the particular mechanism you're going to use to reduce the fines? Is it you won't send as many inspectors? Do you need legislation to like literally make the dollar amount smaller?
I'll start, and then Commissioner can join in. Look, I think one part of this has always been educating our own employees, our own inspectors and officials, to approach the process differently, to inform and educate rather than fine. It used to be, and I really want to thank Adonis because he painted the picture very vividly. It used to be fine first, ask questions later. Again, all about revenue. Very insensitive to small business. And what we said was, let's go to a process of educating, trying to fix the underlying problem. If a small business is willing to fix the problem, then we don't want to fine them. And we've made great progress with that, $100 million back in the hands of small business. But it's clear, after doing that for a while, we think we can do even more of that by reorienting our own folks to constantly go even farther in that process of educating and working with small business, giving them appropriate time to fix problems. I think beyond that, we need to also now look at, are there some outdated rules, regulations that we can get rid of, or other flexibilities we need to add in? Commissioner, you want to?
So in terms of the mechanism, when we first launched Small Business First, when the mayor came into office, we worked with our other agencies, and in some cases it could be administrative code, so it's a rule change. In other instances, it might be legislation, depending on what the fine is. So we've worked with a number of the agencies, and we're mapping that out with the goal of actually getting to the point of by summer that we'll be able to, the businesses will be able to educate them on what is now curable and what is not.
And sorry, a quick follow-up. Do you have a time frame of when you want to have sort of a universe of regulations you think need to be wiped off the books or they're outdated?
Yeah, so it's ongoing. So we actually, the Small Business First initiative, we have taken a look at regulations. We've actually changed some of the regulatory environment. So for example, in the past, if you were a restaurant and you needed to install a range hood, you would have to go to DOB and fire department. We worked with City Council to change that, so now you just go to one agency. So it's an ongoing initiative that we are looking constantly at other, as the mayor said, at other regulations that we can accomplish the same goal.
But let me just, I agree with everything Greg said, but I want to put a point on it because of urgency. This year, and so I have a bunch of nominators here who are going to nominate to us and our colleagues in the council, where are the next rules and regulations that need to be amended? I know the council would be more than willing to act quickly. So I'm going to ask, I know we've met with I met with a group of small business leaders. He's on, he's right? He's right. I met with a small business, group of small business leaders with Greg at Gracie Mansion last week. We got a lot of great ideas. I know every one of you has ideas. Please share them with Greg. I know the council members have ideas. I think we can take action on this quickly. We'll do it right. Again, if it's about health and safety, we're always going to be very careful. But the litany of outdated and ridiculous rules that still exists is pretty clear. And in other cases, making clear in the law how someone can correct properly, giving them the grace period, the opportunity to do that. Those are things we want to work on this year. Other questions? Gloria.
So can you just go into what kind of outdated rules are you talking about, and how does the curing and education process really look? I mean, is there like a group of people you're sending out that are going to be targeting specific businesses to educate people about these outdated rules? Do you have a list of outdated rules? What are
two separate things? So I'm going to start and you jump in. There are not outdated rules. There are perfectly good rules that still can be applied in a way that's much more about getting to the result rather than getting to the fine. This is why putting $100 million back in people's pockets means obviously there was a lot of give there that was not being taken advantage of. We've shown that. But I know we can do more of that alone. Perfectly good rule, but educating. You heard what was said about the many, many rules and regulations. If I were a small business owner, I'd be in the exact same boat. You can only keep up with so much while trying to run your business. More education, more information, more communication, more saying to small businesses, okay, this is what you need to achieve. Let's figure out the way to do this quickly so that we are not in a fine situation. That's part one. That's where we're going to get the immediate cuts from. It's just doing that more deeply than we've done it even already. The second point is beyond. So the second point is going beyond what we're announcing today, and I'm foreshadowing that I am convinced that there's rules and regulations that are no longer relevant. Some are just literally out of touch because they were meant for another time in history. I mean, I remember back when I did a lot of this work as public advocate, you had some rules related to serving food in establishments, and they were being fined even though it was an establishment that didn't serve food. Like on a technicality, people were getting these fines because the agencies and the inspectors had been trained for generations to value giving fines. They had been told, go out and get lots of fines. We've been telling them the exact opposite. So we're going to reduce the fines with the education work, the information, and then we're going to go farther by finding those outdated. Yeah, of course.
I just want to explain and give a perfect example of what we were able to do with an outdated rule and regulation, the signage law dated back to 1960s. With this administration, we were able to put a moratorium back on as we come up with today's needs when it comes to signage. Those fines were in the tens of thousands of dollars that we have now been able to save our small businesses. And we went one step further, if you recall, Mayor and Commissioner. We refunded those businesses that received those fines. And that's government being proactive and not reactive.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So in terms of like an example of some of the fines, so we can give you the list that we have right now, but a perfect example, and I've heard from small businesses, is, I get a fine for a dirty sidewalk. And a lot of small business owners don't know that you have, not only do you have to clean in front of your business, but 18 inches into the street. Again, a lot of business owners, they don't know what they don't know. So in this case, we want to make sure that they're educated, they have an opportunity to cure that violation, and now they know. Another example, and we talked about arcane, if you were trying to open up a gym, for example, in the city of New York, because of the old bathhouse rules, et cetera, you have to go through a couple of different agencies. And of course, we're in a new era now. So we're looking at different types of regulations that may not be appropriate for 2020.
Julia.
How are small businesses defined under this new policy, and what about franchises that come under the umbrella of a national chain but are often owned by individuals?
So I'm going to give the layman's answer first, and then the commissioner can give the more refined answer. If there's a national chain and they're employing New Yorkers and they're providing a service, that's great. My first concern, so I want to be very clear, my first concern is neighborhood small businesses owned by everyday New Yorkers, that employ neighborhood people, small businesses that are part of the character of the neighborhood. Those are the ones that are hurting the most. Obviously, it won't surprise you to know that a national chain, sometimes they get fines that just write it up to the cost of doing business. They can handle it in a way that's very different than, say, the sandwich shop. How many employees? 7. With 7 employees, how many outlets?
1.
Okay, so they are not Kentucky Fried Chicken. So they need to be protected in a different way. So the first focus I have is on the mom and pop stores, the neighborhood stores, the small businesses.
So franchise owners are not included, is that right?
No, so the city, we have a definition at SBS for a small business, 125 employees or less. Most of the customers that we serve, most of the small businesses we serve have 10 or less employees. So they're micro businesses, as the council member said. What we're doing is really looking at storefronts and mom and pops. And we have, actually working with council, we have a program called Chamber on the Go, where we have outreach employees that actually go out and talk to the small businesses, educate them, because again, we want to make sure that every small business knows how to be in compliance, and we don't want to actually fine those businesses, we want to educate those businesses.
Yeah.
So I think some might ask, how can you say you want to help small businesses when your administration does have some of these onerous regulations, like with the signs? There's some downtowns that still have banners over their storefronts, and now one business group says that imposing 2 weeks paid leave is going to make it really hard for them to operate.
So I respect the question, but I'm going to dispute one part of it. Making sure that working people have decent lives is what we're here to do in government. So if you talk about, for example, people being able to make a decent wage, that's something that we should care about in every kind of business. Or if you talk about people being able to get paid sick days, so they do not have to choose between a day's pay or taking care of themselves or their child, that's something that is a bigger need for our whole city, our whole society. I'll defend that all day long. But what I think is 100% fair if people in small business say, okay, then keep working with us to help us in a variety of other ways to keep lightening our burden. So on the signage issue, you just heard the point about some of those signage laws weren't being applied properly. We acted to change that. There are some real issues. If you talk about signage, there are some safety concerns, for example. Of course, I want to make sure we take care of safety. But at the same time, a lot of times laws were being applied in a very arbitrary fashion, or people were not being given clear information, or not given a chance to correct something. That's what we're trying to get away from. A lot of fines were not necessary. We've cut them. We're going to cut them more. A lot of regulations are not necessary. We're going to cut them more. And then the bigger issues of what's it going to take to get money in the hands of small business. More loans from the city as part of this plan. Investments from our pension funds. Our pension funds, one of the things I announced to the state of the city, $500 million per year from our pension funds should be invested in our small businesses because they are good investments and they employ New Yorkers. So we're trying to achieve more than one thing. On the paid personal time, that's legislation we're all working on together. Now, I would remind you, this is not about you personally. I don't know how many people in this room have paid personal time. I don't know how many people assume it as part of their life. I think for a lot of people who work in government, a lot of people are unionized, a lot of people work in bigger businesses, the notion that you would go all year and not have a paid vacation day, I think a lot of people wouldn't even take that job if they were told you get to work all year without a single paid vacation day. There's almost 1 million New Yorkers right now who are working people who have no paid vacation days in a year. That's unacceptable. We're the only country in the industrialized world that does not guarantee paid vacation days. How do we do it in a way that is respectful of small business and works with small business is exactly what we're working through in the council. And we've got to strike that balance. If someone from small business says, before you pass that bill, make sure you are thinking about the needs of small business, I say absolutely. Speaker Johnson's been very clear about that. Council members have been clear. It has not passed because we're still trying to reflect that balance, and I will believe we will get there soon. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to, I guess, the definition of a small business, because I know in most people's encounters, there are a lot of franchises of like a Dunkin' Donuts or a Checkers, almost always owned by an immigrant franchisee owner. They also have to grapple with a lot of sanitation fines and this sort of stuff. So are you really going to delineate, sure they're owned by Big Coffee or whatever, Dunkin' Donuts or something.
Big Coffee, I like that.
Yeah, Big Coffee.
Big Coffee.
Even the Starbucks is run by local real New Yorkers, as you call them, and they also kind of deal with these things. So will you really kind of say, no, if it's a chain, no, if it's a micro chain, no, or?
No, Greg will go into detail again, but the bottom line is this. We care first and foremost, I want to be just as clear as I can be. First concern here, neighborhood mom and pop stores. This is the first concern because this goes beyond just the question of people making a living or employing other people. This is part of the character of our communities. This is part of who we are. God bless the chains. But let's be clear. These owner-created businesses, these businesses that are synonymous with our neighborhoods, and Near's Tavern is one of the greatest examples, obviously 190 years. The point is, a Starbucks cannot do what Nearest Tavern can do. Nearest Tavern has a particular identity that is powerful. You could, if you put a Applebee's in there, it will not mean the same thing to the community. I'm just speaking very real human terms. So we have a particular devotion to protecting mom and pop stores all over the 5 boroughs. Now, if we've got a chain store owned by a franchisee, of course we don't want them to have to pay an arbitrary fine. We're going to work with them too. But the first focus here is on something that's not just material. In other words, I don't want people to have the impression this is just about, you know, dollars and cents or something that's physical. This is also something emotional, human, almost spiritual, you could say, about New York City. This is part of our identity. This is part of our heart and soul. And it's slipping away. We can actually do something about it. So that's where our first focus will be. Do you want to speak to that?
I mean, is it partially discriminatory? I mean, look, if you go to like the Starbucks in Howard Beach, that's about as local as it gets, right?
Right. So this is not for small businesses and not for franchises. It's for all businesses. There are certain programs that we have at SBS where there is, for example, a revenue requirement, employee requirement to make sure that we focus on, the micro businesses like the sandwich shop, because what we do find is franchisees have additional resources. They probably have an attorney, they have other things where they have the resources, but for this, in terms of when we're talking about fines and educating businesses, it's for all businesses. But as the mayor said, what I hear all the time when I'm out on the street is from business owners like Ricardo who they don't have the resources, so they come to us and say, I need help. And this is what we're doing to address what we're hearing from our small businesses.
So to the business owners assembled here, if we focus on mom and pop stores, if that's our first concern, mom and pop neighborhood stores, do you regard that as discriminatory? The question is not unfair. No, it's not unfair, but I want to be clear. It's not discriminatory to help the people in greatest need, and it's not discriminatory to help the businesses that define our neighborhoods. God bless Starbucks. They cannot define a neighborhood. They're not of and by and for a neighborhood the way these businesses are. Any other questions on small business? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, on WNYC, you've gotten a number of calls from small business owners at the point where they're kind of in dire straits. Yes. And I'm wondering if it has made you either raise questions or review just how accessible the Department of Small Business Services is, or how responsive they are, in the sense that, when people feel like their only option is to call you on the radio, that's a sense of desperate and perhaps that they couldn't get their answers another way.
It's a fair question. Greg is standing right next to me. I've talked to a lot of small business owners over the years who have been consistently positive about SBS and about Greg's leadership. I don't have a question about that. I do think your question is fair because we have a scale problem. It is a vast city, and a lot of people, when they're trying to get help, they just don't know where to turn or don't necessarily realize the help is there. We've got to do a better job. One of the things that Greg has talked about a lot is we have loans we can make available to small businesses. We have legal support, which is actually crucial. One of the things that small business owners have told me they're most excited about is legal help to resolve lease disputes or to make sure that they're signing a lease that's actually appropriate. There's a lot that the city has that a lot of small business owners don't know enough of how to access. That's our responsibility to do that better. And to make sure, because exactly like the call this morning, I don't know the details of the situation, but Greg is following up with that small business owner today. We need to do a better job making sure that anyone who has that kind of emergency situation knows exactly where to call in small business services. And Greg, you can speak to it, how someone would do it now. But I agree, the question is inherently fair because she should not have had to make that call. We want to make sure people know where to turn because there actually is a lot we can do. And long before, Nearest Tavern got a lot of attention for good reason. But long before that, there's plenty of other examples where Greg and his team stepped in and kept businesses going. I think you should speak to that as well.
So thanks for that question. Awareness of our services is one of the biggest challenges that we have, and we've been working really hard with our local partners, our business improvement districts, our council members, and all our other business-facing organizations. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of business owners, they don't think to actually come to us for assistance, so thank you for asking that, and hopefully you're right that you can actually contact SBS. You can call 311. I'll even give you my email address. It's gbishop@sbs.nyc.gov. Because a lot of business owners, they typically, if they are looking for assistance, they will. If they come to us, it's usually when it's the sort of the last straw, and we want to change that. We want to make sure that they see the city as a partner, and that we can step in at the very beginning. So everything that we have done, we have an outreach team. We have a compliance team that I talked about, where we actually go out to businesses. We help educate them on how to be in compliance before a regulatory agency come in. We have an outreach team that's funded by the City Council called Chamber on the Go, and we work with all the 5 area chambers. We send out basically a street team, and we stop into every single business, and we talk about our services. And we have a great social media strategy where we, if you're searching for help online, our services will come up first. So again, I'm open to any other ideas on how to get business owners to see us as a partner, but we're out there, and we want to make sure that business owners know that we are here to help.
So we're going to do all that, but I would also say I have no problem at all with people continuing to call in to WNYC, because I want to hear what people need, and I want to hear what's working and not working. Okay, last call, questions on small business. Media questions, my friend, on small business. Okay, let me give our good small business owners a chance to go back to work.